Hello, it's Kylie Koo. So welcome to the next video in my Take 5 series. Before I start on my page today, I just wanted to deal with a question that had been asked. So the question came from Crafty Crab, who has her own YouTube channel, and she said that she was interested in the Take 5 process, etc., but wanted to know how much preparation is involved in getting the bits together. So I said to Crafty Crab that I'd cover that in one of the videos that I was going to put up on Take 5. I think the whole point of this is that, by Take 5, I do want this to be a quick process. So what I don't want to do is to spend 20 minutes or whatever beforehand trying to prepare for it. So there's 2 or 3 different ways I approach it. Sometimes it's very much the case depending on when I'm doing the actual page. So if, for example, I've already been creating, I'll often have a whole load of things around me, and when I come to do the Take 5 page, I will just generally grab those. Other times I'm doing it as a warm-up, so I might actually think about some of the materials that I might want later, so I'll maybe start to look those out and use some of those. Other times, those times when I'm just doing this for the sake of I want to do something, I want to do it quick, then I will just simply grab a few materials. And most of my materials are fairly close to hand. Sometimes they are better organised than ever, but I tend to keep a few well-used things just in little tubs and bins. So if you can bear with me, I shall just go over that with you just now. If you're not interested in this bit, then obviously you can move forward to where I actually start to do the page. But here's what I have. I tend to keep a lot of these little cartons. It's mainly, I think, mushrooms that come in these. So for example, I'll have one where I've been working on projects. I just throw in any bits and pieces that I think might do for collage, mixed media. It could be in ordinary journal pages, or it might be in the Take 5 journal pages. So really, I used this in a recent project, so I've just put this and this piece in. This is some deli paper that I'd printed on. Last remaining bit of a bit of book paper, some old baby wipes, kitchen towel that has some paint on it, old raffle ticket things, label of a wine bottle. I think I'd taken that off for another project and didn't use it, so I just threw that in there. So it's just stuff like that. Sometimes there's more in it, sometimes there's less in it, just depends where we are. Now, I also have this to hand, and these are the tags that I made from cereal boxes. If you look at my cereal box journal video, you'll see how I made these. So I keep these to hand just to use when I feel like it. So sometimes I might throw in a few of these little smaller pieces, for example. So at one point I had quite a lot of those in. So especially those pieces that might not be useful for anything other than that type of thing. Here we go. So I've thrown a few of those in. So those are always close to hand as well. Now, in terms of stamps and stencils, I have my stamps and stencils very readily to hand. Sometimes I'll just pull out a couple of those, just the ones that take my fancy. I have a couple that I use really quite frequently, one being the script stamp, the other one being the, I've forgotten the name of it, but I use it a lot. But what I also do is I have another one of these little mushroom containers where I just keep the likes of the household items that, the kind of recycled items that I might use quite often. Again, this varies because sometimes I'll go to my bigger box and pull others out for other projects, but I usually always have a few things there to hand that again I can just draw on very quickly. And these just sit off to the side of the desk. In terms of paints, it will just depend what I have lying around, but I also have my bin, my tub of the kind of older paints that are coming to the end of their life. Again, these are the ones that I've tried to use mainly in a lot of my recycling projects rather than to use the good, more expensive paints. But by the same token, sorry, it's not to say that these aren't good and they're not expensive, it's just, you know, they're towards the end of their life. But some of the other paints, if I've got them out, then I will use those. And sometimes I just pull one because it's a new brand that I've got and I haven't tried them at all. So I think, well, I may as well just try it on here. But again, that tub is very handy. It's very close to hand and I just grab that. In terms of ink pads, again, I tend to keep most of them together in this tub, and again, I'll just pull a couple of pads from here. I don't give a lot of thought to the type that I want to use. You know, so sometimes it might be these, sometimes it might just be the plain black stays on, or at the moment, a couple of my favourites are these. One being, no, it's not this one, Christmas green, and this one being dark blue. And sometimes I just prefer to use these kind of darker colours to actually using the black itself, but again, it really just depends what I'm using. Sometimes things just end up getting dumped in here because, well, just because I'm lazy sometimes and don't put them back. Look, what's this? More raffle tickets, so I'll just put these right into the scraps box. So that's that. So we've covered paints, we've covered inks, we've covered collage and recycle, stamps and stencils, words and images. So every so often I will just take some magazines and go through them and pull a whole load out. I need to get better at organising these, but this was a lot that I pulled out recently. By and large, I just tend to tear out the pages. With the words, I'll just, you know, reduce that in size if that's the only bit of the page that I want. Sometimes I will sit and cut round them, as I've done with this one and this one. You see, perhaps I'd thought about using these at one point, I don't know. I maybe just decided that I'd do a bit of cutting like that. So I kind of have all these things just sitting. I had been going to use that previously, I didn't get round to it. I'll keep that just now. Some of the images are quite big for this little journal, so for that reason I just keep them to the side. So because I've been through this 2 or 3 times, I have a fairly good idea of what's in here. But as I say, I need to get better organised. Likewise with the words, I've looked at these a few times, so I kind of know what's in there. So today, for this journal page, I literally took, I don't know, no more than a minute. I had a quick look at this and thought, what do I want? And sometimes I guess it will reflect maybe the mood that I'm in, I don't know. But today, I'm just going to show you what I did draw for today. So sometimes I'll do this stage ahead of everything else. Sometimes I will get to the last step, or sorry, the second last step, then leave it to dry for a minute, and at that point I'll go off and look for my words and images. So I'll do the paint and ink, I'll do the collage recycle, I'll do the stamps and stencils, and I think, all right, while all of that's drying for a couple of minutes, I'll have a quick look at my words and images. So today I had a very quick look. I saw this, which I've seen a few times as I've been going through, but I was keeping it for another project, but I know I've actually got some more of these somewhere because it came on an envelope, and I just pulled that, and I very quickly thought what words would go with it. I've pulled 3. I can't switch off, colour balance, endless, the journey. I think the journey bit rather than your life transformed, that could be 2 different things. So, you know, what I might do is just leave these to the side, wait and see how the page develops, and then decide which words to put on. And I would just quickly cut round that ahead of sticking it down. So that's basically all I do. I would reckon it takes me no more than 2 or 3 minutes to actually pull everything out. 2 or 3 minutes drying time, as I've said before, and then the 5 minutes for this. So I think this whole process can realistically be done in no more than 10 minutes. And if you already have stuff to hand, then you can literally do it in 5, 6, 7 minutes if it takes time to dry. So that's it. So all I'm going to do after I drink my coffee, that's the other thing I always have to have on hand is my coffee. No, the other thing I do have and do maybe grab, but again these sit close by, is some pens or pencils. Now, I find that one of the best pens for using on this is this one. It wasn't particularly expensive. First edition craft, twin markers, so it's got a thick end and a thinner end. The reason I like this is it's pretty good on all materials. Sometimes some of the magazines you draw from, it's glossy, and some of the pens don't seem to like that as much. If your paint's still a little bit wet, it badly damages some pens, so you need to be careful. So I tend to grab this. The other one I'll often grab is a white. My Posca pens are off to the side just now because I need to go through them. Some of them are leaking and not terribly good. So, you know, more often than not, I'll grab this. And maybe something like the Stabilo All, which is a pretty decent pencil. Sometimes just an ordinary pencil, nothing more than that. So again, these are all pretty much to hand. So I'm going to do my page. I'm going to, got my images already pulled out and the words that I think I'm going to use. I might change my mind, you never know. During the point where I'm letting it dry, I might change my mind. And if I do, I've got all my other images to hand, and it wouldn't take me long to have a quick look and find something. Move them to the side. Got my little stamps and potential stencil, if that's what I'm going to use today, which I think I will. And I've got my little box of scraps for the collage recycle stage, and my inks are to hand and my paints are to hand. So I'm going to take just a minute to pull those out. And this is what I would normally do. Some of these I have to press down because they are getting near the bottom. I don't even at this stage look at what would go with the image that I've taken out. I'm not bothered about that really. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Now the other thing is, I'm saying, you know, take 5. If you want to do this and you want to take longer than 5 minutes, take longer than 5 minutes. You know, at the end of the day, it's your journal page. For me, the take 5 is simply about being able to do something quickly when time is tight, or where you just want to do it as a warm-up exercise. But you know what? If you want to take 10 minutes to do a page, 15 minutes, half an hour, doesn't matter. It's your journal page, it's your time. You do what best satisfies your need at that point in time. And really, the journaling by 5 steps are really just a way to help you face that kind of blank page. I think it's a helpful process, but you know, again, if you wanted to do, you know, if you got to words and images, you'd stuck them all down and you thought, actually, there's something else I want on this page, then go back and stick it on. There's no problem. Your journal, you do as you wish. So, I pulled a couple of paints out there. That's that. I'm just going to pull a stamp. Today I'm just going to use black, just for the sake of it. I've got these. I'm not deciding what I'm going to use with these until it's ready. So there we go. My talking aside, that took less than a minute. Now normally at this stage I would go and fill up some water, or the mini mister if I was going to use that. But look, and this is grotty, I do apologise. I had water sitting there for 2 days. I really shouldn't do that. Perhaps even worse than leaving the water sitting for 2 days is I've left the brushes sitting face down in them for 2 days. Fortunately, I don't think the waterline is above this piece of the brush. If it is, you have to be very careful. You really shouldn't leave brushes sitting in water up beyond there, because the water gets down underneath the metal and the wood will actually start to rot. And I think this particular brush, which wasn't a cheap brush, it's a nice one. I think it was part of the Dina Wakley range. No, it's not this one, it's the one that's just slightly smaller than this. I can actually already feel it moving there, and I think that's because I left it sitting in water. So, good paint hygiene, good paintbrush hygiene is important. We know that, but we don't necessarily do it. So, right, I'm going to just have another sip of coffee, and then I'm going to set my timer and we'll get going. I've pulled one more thing, which is this ink, because the first step is paint and ink, so I sometimes like to put a bit of ink down. Sometimes I'll just use an ink pad and put it down. Sometimes I'll use some drink ink through a dropper. Today I'm just going to use some of this, probably. So, that's us. Let's get going. Just looking for the timer. Okay, so that's time up. I've got this blob here. That is going to move when I try and dry it. The paint I put on was quite thick. Again, I have my other book to hand. Book, journal. And I'll just scrape some of that on there. Sometimes it will look like mud at this stage, but you know, there's always new colours being added, so that's fine. So now I'll literally take a minute to quickly dry that off. I will probably go and make myself another cup of coffee. I am a coffee addict, without a doubt. But I'll dry that off and then I'll be back for step 2. That was so quick, I didn't even need to make another cup of coffee. I've still got some yet. So I'm just moving these out of the way because I know I'll knock them over otherwise. I can get a bit clumsy at times. You'll see that this is spread. That was one of the benefits of just putting the heat on it. It spread it out a bit. You see it's not particularly expensive paper. That ink's actually shown through, but that's okay. That's there for another time. We won't worry about that. So now is collage and recycle. So as I said, I pull my little bin here, put it beside me, and then I'll start. So I'll just get the timer set. Should have said, but I also have this to hand always. Usually just sits in one of these little tubs, so I have that ready at the start as well. But even if I didn't have it out there, it's never very far away, so it doesn't take any time for me to get that. So here we go, step 2. Okay, so that was time up. So now this won't take any time to dry really. If I had any doubts about any of it not sticking down properly, I might just quickly stick another bit of glue under. I'm going to do that there. That's okay. And then it's stamps and stencils. So I move this tub out the way. They're just all sitting literally beside me. I move that out the way, I move this one in, and I move my ink in that I've decided to use today. That goes there. Move that out the way, and ready to go for the next step. So 1 minute again. Now, of course, what I remembered from before there was that actually, unless I'm using paint, that doesn't go through there terribly well, which is why I put the ink on top and then just turned it over and did it with the reverse side down. So, but that's us with that one. So again, it's just a case of quickly clearing that out of the way, just into the tubs that are beside me. Now I'm going to make another cup of coffee now, because I am thirsty, I do need a drink. So back in a second. So, cup of coffee made. I think this is dry enough, I'm not too worried about it. Come back. I think I'm going to use this image, so that's that decision made. What words? I don't know. I think both. I'm drawn to I can't switch off because it's the I, but I'm also drawn to endless, and I don't know why. And of course, this is what you shouldn't do. And this, I think, is where, you know, just having stuff together and not actually thinking about it, just pulling from tubs. And where you do more than one page, I think you've got less time to really stop and think about it. But, as I already said, you know, if you want to stop and think about it, if you want to sit and enjoy your cup of coffee while you mull over whether you want to use this or this, then do that. It's your journal, so do as you think. But there is something about I can't switch off numbers and that, so I'm just going with that, even though I do like that too. See? You let me know what you would have gone for. So, decision made. I'm going to set my minute. I know that I'll get those two things set down in a minute, stuck down in a minute, so it's not a problem. But we will go through the process anyway. It feels slightly more artificial today just because I'm kind of talking through each step, and you know, I did want to show you that just in terms of how I make my decisions, but normally I wouldn't have all of that faffing about because it's just in front of me and I just get on with it. So, faffing over, let's get on with it. 1 minute. So here's another thing. I've got 10 seconds left. I'm not going to use up those 10 seconds, you know, pretending that I'm doing something else. It's down, it's done. That's it. So, last step is pen and pencil. And I think this is a page that I'm going to really enjoy doing when it comes to free play. But for the moment, I'm going to take out my trusty first edition craft, and I always pull the wrong end off first, but yeah, I should know that, it's got that on it. So I'll pull out that, and I shall pull out I'm going to pull out the aquarelle. You see, normally I would use this with water, so it really is funny. The fact that I'm stopping and explaining the process is actually making me think about it more, but I'm going to use these two. I don't know where I'll get to in a minute. Move my glue out the way. Scissors out the way. There's glue sticking everywhere. Have a drink of coffee. I'm going to pull this in just a little bit. There we go. And bring that brush over in case I need it. I've got my minute and let's go. And that's it, page done. So actually at the end of it, I'm quite happy that I went with that one. It's bright, it stands out. I only, got a little bit of outlining done. That always tends to be my starting point, is just to simply go around those main images. I used the aquarelle pencil just around here, had time to go around it quickly with a brush, and I'm actually quite pleased the way that that turned out. Just gives a bit of depth now to these, and that was just a piece of paper that I'd punched some centres out of. I think it was for my rainbow cards that I did recently as part of the CAC Love Flower art. So I had that, and quite like the way that's looking. Some old tickets, they had a tear in them, which, well, just as I tore them off, and I think that gives a nice rough edge to it. So yeah, all in all, I'm quite pleased with it. So I hope you found that useful, me just explaining how I pull the materials together. It really doesn't take me any more than a couple of minutes because I do have the stuff to hand. If you have all your things neatly away, then it might take you just a little bit longer. I always tend to have things lying about, so that's just the way I work. I do have a big tidy up every now and again, but for the most part I'll always have little bits and pieces lying about. So there we go. So thanks very much for joining me. I shall go off and enjoy my cup of coffee now. And yeah, so see you next time, and I hope you'll enjoy me again. So bye for now.